Hello beautiful people! Today another video process of a piece I called Pest Control. Honestly, I got an overwhelming number of requests to keep narrating my videos. Well, maybe not that many, okay, literally one. No worries brother, I got you. So I'll keep that format for now. Since the last time, I still wanted to explore this dramatic found footage-like lighting and play with some stark contrast of pitch black and overexposed elements. I didn't use a sketch for this image since I had a rather clear idea of the final result, so this time I haven't produced any early ideations by Stable Diffusion, but still will do some generative content in the context of the video. To be honest, I ended up rewriting many of initial ideas for this video. Maybe I will include them in some of the upcoming ones. At first I wanted to talk with you about the nature of creativity and art in modern age, but something came up that sparked a number of insights that I decided to share. So, just recently a potential client reached out to me offering a freelance gig. And when we discussed some details about the project, the client almost apologetically brought up the fact that they used AI to flesh out some early ideas for the project. I'm totally fine with that. And among the generated artifacts was this motion comic delivering the origin story of the universe. It was narrated by some hired freelance voice talent and accompanied by authentic background music. Probably you saw some of those. Some of the images in motion comic were these epic, flashy, over-the-top fantasy style images that swarm the internet nowadays. So that was a dead giveaway for the use of AI. But other than that, the short video gave a very solid impression, getting the idea across very seamlessly and actually immersing me as a viewer, leaving me wanting more. And that was the moment when I realized that if someone showed me this little trailer 2 years ago, I would not only assume this to be a final product, but also a good one. Yes, I know, the copyrights. As for now, if you generate stuff, you don't own shit. But still, think about it for a second. Doesn't it mean that all of a sudden the role of so many artists in entertainment industry has just changed from being an essential specialist, the actual creator, to someone who actually just performs copyright laundry services for those in need? Well, I mean, I'm clearly over-exaggerating the statement a bit. Or am I not? Let's be real here. It hits different when instead of a usual mood and feel references together with stickman storyboard, you get something so accomplished and hence involuntarily prescriptive that it almost instantly spooks away your creative spark and puts you in this weird box where you both try to do the project and the method justice, but also try to somehow integrate whichever good solutions you think your client might have got attached to when producing this piece of content that they show you as a reference. In the light of a constant media buzz about generative AI applications, some of us, and I'm definitely among these people, started to feel a bit insecure and uncomfortable around this topic. And the strange thing about it is that I don't feel threatened by this technology per se, but still there is this deep sense of unease that I get when dealing with any form of it. I decided to dig deeper into it and try to understand where does this feeling take its origin in me. So I stumbled upon a few things here. First, I feel kind of a loss of certain aspects of what made being an artist such a fulfilling journey. I realized what a potent creative fuel it was, anticipation that you as an artist had of satisfying or better exceeding clients' expectations. It was a truly magical and invigorating feeling to see excitement in the eyes of a fellow human witnessing his or her ideas manifest in real life through your hand. It was one of the great rewards to somehow compensate for years of doubt, struggle, mind-numbing, blind dedication that you had to pay as a fee to have a well-deserved monopoly on miracle that is getting stuff from your head into tangible reality. Now this miracle is democratized. And the thing we all learned about democracy is you can run, you can hide, eventually it will come to get you. So yeah, definitely it's a bummer to lose this admiration for being a living, breathing magician. And just maybe there is this annoying thought in the back of my mind that soon this admiration will change to an indulgent praise for being just a mere human who still paints for some reason. And probably at this point someone will argue that a true artist doesn't create because, but rather creates in spite of. Yeah, a very poetic and unrealistic view in my humble opinion. When some people hear the word artist, they usually imagine a free spirit, some freak of nature who became a vessel for spontaneous eruptions of creative energy, totally chaotic, self-absorbed and self-oriented, also with no need to justify one's existence. It's as if art is more about being a unique little snowflake. And while being unique is being celebrated in the West, I grew up in Russia. If you have too many snowflakes around, it means one thing: you pick the shovel and dig your way to the school today. If you have more snowflakes that day, too bad, you also dig your way home. If your shovel is shit, you're fucked. You see, shovel is useful, snowflakes not. So be the shovel, my friends. Like, okay, seriously, I could only consider this career as an option knowing that it can pay bills. Taking the risk of pursuing such an infantile passion, as many would call it, it's not easy, and I bet many can relate to how conflicted your family circle might have felt about your career choice, or how hard this decision was for you simply because you wanted to provide for your family and make them proud. Usually this career choice does take its toll in the form of permanent imposter syndrome. I bet like most of us can relate to that. And to oppose that, we tend to come up with some coping mechanisms. Mine, for instance, is an undying craving for being useful. And this is where generative AI hits the hardest, unfortunately. And for any newly emerged human rights activists out there who are ready to shit all over any kind of AI content, seriously, be reasonable, would you? AI art, when done right, can objectively be very impressive, especially in technical regard and aesthetically. And no wonder, since it's based on a potent extract of thousands of masterpieces and professional works of thousands of authors. So I know from personal experience that in the right hands, generative tools become a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, sure, not in some gallery art or fine art scene, no. This tech excels in conditions of permanent shitfest that is the entertainment industry today. With its mind-boggling time constraints, unhealthy level of uncertainty and stress. I know because I've been an art director for the last 5 years, and quite recently I already had a case, a heart-wrenching experience to be honest, where I had to fire half of my art team over this technology. People that I was painstakingly cherry-picking, hiring and integrating into the pipeline for months. Not my call obviously, but what you can do. So this is one factor that contributes to this feeling of unease. The other factor is the people, even artists themselves, your peers who weaponize the "is just another tool" mantra, not even trying to apply some critical thinking to the topic, as if this blissfully ignorant stance makes them look more professional. Until they get laid off. Not all of them, some of them obviously. I mean, I can understand the desire to just ignore the boss and focus on life. Actually, it's a healthy thing to do to an extent. It doesn't make this tool statement valid though. I mean, seriously guys, working in entertainment basically equals learning new tools. It's the name of the game. Let's see, photo bashing was a new tool back in the days, so to say. Well, okay, more like a technique. We learned it, I learned it. Then digital sculpting, did that, sure, no problem. Modeling, okay, wasn't easy, but was worth it. Texturing, sure. Parametric modeling, okay, weird stuff, but had its own implications. Procedural modeling, boy oh boy, that's a deep rabbit hole, I must say, yeah. Had to figure out how it works, tried it, can use it if needed. Fiddling with game engines, Unity, Unreal, sure, let's go. And this is not bragging, for anyone diving deep into the game industry for instance. Most of the things listed above, if not all of them, are a must by now. So why just a so-called new tool have caused such backlash all of a sudden? Maybe because it's not just a tool? It's disruptive technology. And don't take my word for it. The very people who developed this technology call it that way. But what does it mean and why it's not just a new tool? In case of visual arts, this tech changes the way you approach the creation of an art piece. While providing seemingly limitless options for you to flesh out your idea, it also takes away a nuanced control that you have approaching the work using traditional methods. It substitutes this control with numerous trivial solutions. So instead of meticulously crafting your authentic solution for a problem using composition, color, rhythm, any other expressive tools, you end up scrolling away numerous generations, often eventually giving in to the next best thing. A process addictive in its own right, like pulling a lever of a slot machine. What does it have in common with realizing your idea with your own hands, putting down brushstroke after brushstroke, moving vertices, molding the polygons, making sometimes hundreds of decisions in the span of minutes, having artistic or even profound philosophical insights in the process? In my experience so far, there's hardly anything in common. There's a great behind-the-scenes documentary for an animated feature film, Rango, with the lizard guy if you recall. I remember the producer of the picture or its director mentioned that people tend to downplay the fact that, unlike in live-action movies, there's nothing in animation films that is given. You can scout for a beautiful location, bring the team there and shoot. The earth, the sky, the lighting, every prop starting from the mountain in the far distance to every building, every rock with a patch of grass in the foreground. Everything has to be produced and intentionally placed in the scene by hand. Well, that's what makes animation so expensive. That also made it more captivating, unique and expressive. A perfect vessel for a collaborative artistic effort. And contrary to that, to describe the level of control that AI models provide at the moment, it would look more like you and your photographer assistant arrived to some random location in a sealed van with no windows. You hope that the place somewhat resembled what you were looking for, but that's not for certain. Then you give your not-so-bright photographer very simple and short instructions, otherwise he gets confused. You let him out of the van. Oh, I forgot to mention, your photographer is also blind. So, your poor blind assistant makes a few shots, kinda trying his best to follow your instructions, then he hops back into the van, and you take a look at the pictures. If the result is too far from what you need, you repeat the process. And even with all the in-paints, control net voodoo and other bells and whistles, it still remains a very indirect process that will never be as immediate, deliberate and intentional as an artist expressing himself through his tools. And don't get me wrong, while it might sound like from how I put it, generative art and pipeline is totally worthless, it actually is very powerful. And yes, you can call it a tool. a very different tool that is, in my opinion, not optimal for art creation, but is definitely the best tool for content creation. And this is it, I guess. This is the key, the root cause of all this buzz and confusion I was trying to find. Yes, I know, for many people it might have been too obvious, but it's one of those problems that are better observed from distance, not when you're part of it. You see, I think every single one of us who took this career path came here to do art, not content. And all the people we work with, some of the top management, many heads of studios, they all at some point believed in this idea of approaching their creations as pieces of art, rather than just consumer products satisfying the audience's demands. But at the moment, it's simply absurd to say that the artistic value of products is still at the forefront, while the pace of their production is simply no longer comparable to the very idea of artistic expression. We all saw it with our own eyes, we all felt it with our own guts, and generative AI was the final nail in the coffin to make the distinction between art and content blatantly clear. In order not to be unfounded, let's define what we mean by self-expression in relation to the art. Yes, we all realize that art is reaction to reality. Reality itself inspires people to create images and stories, and these in turn inspire new stuff. Art creation is a conscious process. Its essential elements are the intent and motive. Realizing of intent and motive requires time and reflection. In the absence of these, art becomes simply a practice of technical execution. And the irony is that gradually this practice for practice sake became the type of self-expression that has become prevalent today. Any artist wants to have his own voice to communicate ideas, but we no longer have the time necessary to develop that voice or come up with ideas. We substituted art with content. Vapid, formulaic emojis and memes in endless variations, flat and monosyllabic. Often there is no longer an artist in them, there is only the time spent. As the generation of the slogan "just do it," we have distorted its meaning. Thanks to social networks and algorithms, we have created an omnivorous content-devouring monster with an insatiable appetite, and we ourselves have become its victim. Because stopping and thinking while producing our content means losing a race against time to someone. So many of us, unnoticeably, have become some Xerox machines producing identical content. A multi-voiced crowd screaming monosyllables in a vain attempt to attract attention and gain influence. The irony is that AI instantly adapted to repeat the same phrases after us and became a mouthpiece in this indignant crowd, which literally anyone can pick up, and many people did pick it up. And so, AI generative models just became a perfect tool to flare up the symptoms of an already present disease, to the point it couldn't be ignored anymore. Like with every groundbreaking invention that humanity gave birth to, like with creation of fire, the first thing human does is he lights up his own ass. In other words, AI is just a perfect product of its time, and for me personally it just became a strong enough signal to stop, take a breath, and ask myself a rather profound and scary question. Am I up for the chase? It will definitely take some time to meditate on that. Okay, that was a hell of a rant, but this thing was kinda nagging on me, so I had to get it out of my system. Surely it's not also black and white. There are plenty of people who are true artists and truth seekers out there exploring AI art, who come up with some pieces that are really interesting and fun to explore. And unsurprisingly, from what I saw, it often takes them amount of time comparable to that of creating traditional artwork to pull that off. I obviously didn't even touch a whole spectrum of topics on how pursuing art is tightly intertwined with developing discipline and mental focus, things integral for deeper understanding and feel for artistic language and aesthetics. how art is a very introspective discipline that promotes self-growth and even have some therapeutic effects. But I guess any of these or many other topics will be better fit for some other upcoming videos. Any suggestions for the topics in the comment section of this video are also very welcome. As for this particular piece, my desire to explore this lighting was satisfied to an extent. And I also kind of managed to project this weird, whimsical, comical absurdity that I was after in this piece. It's a bit dark, a bit spooky, a little bit funny, kinda dumb, and surreal. I wanted to achieve this strange emotion that you get when you look at something familiar, almost trivial. Some kind of a setup which is very typical of horror setting, for instance, but has a sudden, unexpected twist to it, to break a pattern. I was always very fascinated with how illustrations have this instantaneous delivery of emotion. If you compare it with music, for example, emotion in music develops and unfolds with time, while in art, the hit is instant and imminent. You can stop listening to a music track, but you can't unsee a picture. Although this one you probably would like to unsee. But that's the fun part of it, I think. And when I tried to realize this idea in my head by using generations, as you can see, while some elements might have come close here and there, it's still rather difficult to approach themes that deviate quite drastically from your usual beauty shots, aesthetic porn as I call it. Though anyone experienced enough with AI models and dedicated enough would eventually achieve some kind of a plausible result, I guess. I won't deny it. So the main difference for me is I had fun doing it. So see you next time.